In the heart of a sprawling city, Alex, a tech-savvy college student, found himself in a bind. With tuition due and bills piling up, he sought out a way to make some quick cash online. It was a casual night when he stumbled upon the dark web while browsing a forum dedicated to side hustles. The allure of anonymity and fast money was intoxicating. He created an anonymous profile and began exploring, feeling like an adventurer in a digital Wild West. It wasn't long before a message popped up from a user named Shade. Their profile was blank, but the offer was tempting. A hefty sum for a simple task: retrieve a package from a remote location and deliver it to a specified address. Curiosity piqued, Alex agreed, knowing he could use the money to ease his financial burden. The details were vague, but the thrill of the unknown and the thought of fast cash overshadowed his better judgment. The next evening, he found himself standing in front of a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town. Graffiti covered the walls, and the air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. A tingle of apprehension crawled up his spine, but he brushed it off. This was just a job after all. Inside, the atmosphere was even more unsettling. Dust motes floated through shafts of dim light. In the center of the room, he spotted a small, unmarked box resting on a rickety table. It seemed out of place amidst the decay. With shaky hands, Alex picked it up, feeling a chill run through him as he realized he was alone in this grim setting. Ignoring his instincts, he took the box home, convinced he could handle whatever was inside. Once in his apartment, he set it on the table, his heart racing with a mixture of excitement and dread. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and opened it. Inside lay a grotesque doll. Its porcelain face was cracked, and it was smeared with what looked like dried blood. A note was tucked underneath, scrawled in a shaky hand: "Do not let it out of your sight." That night, Alex struggled to sleep, haunted by the doll's lifeless gaze. It felt as if it were watching him, scrutinizing him in the dark. He tried to dismiss it as paranoia, but every creak of the floorboards made his heart race. Friends noticed his unease, but he brushed off their concerns, telling them he was just exhausted from studying. As days turned into a week, the doll seemed to change. At night, Alex could swear its expression shifted, its eyes darkening as if absorbing the shadows around it. His dread deepened when he started experiencing nightmares, visions of the doll moving, its cracked smile growing wider as it whispered his name. Then came the night when the power went out. Plunged into darkness, Alex fumbled for his phone, searching for a source of light. The familiar glow illuminated the doll, and he felt an icy grip on his heart. It was gone. Panic surged through him as he tore through his apartment, calling out to the empty rooms. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Shade. "You need to find it. It's awake." Frantically, he turned on the flashlight, scanning the room. Shadows danced ominously, and his breath quickened. Just as he was about to give up hope, he spotted the doll in the hallway, standing upright, facing him. Its mouth twisted into a sinister smile. Fear gripped him and he stumbled backward. The doll whispered, its voice low and haunting, "You shouldn't have taken me." With adrenaline coursing through him, Alex bolted for the door, but it slammed shut with a force that rattled the windows. He was trapped. The doll's laughter echoed in the darkness, filling the air with an oppressive weight. Desperation clawed at his throat as he rushed to his laptop, hoping to trace Shade's IP address, to find a way out of this nightmare. As he typed, the screen flickered, revealing horrifying images. Faces twisted in agony, their eyes wide with terror. The doll was feeding on his fear, and he realized that it was no ordinary object. It was a conduit, a gateway to something far more sinister. In a moment of clarity, he recalled the note: "Do not let it out of your sight." He snatched the doll and hurled it into the bathroom, slamming the door shut. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of screams. Heart pounding, he rushed to the window, trying to pry it open. Just then, the power flickered back on, and the doll's voice rang out one last time: "You can't escape me." In a final act of desperation, he broke the window and climbed out, landing painfully on the ground below. He didn't look back, racing down the street until he reached the nearest police station. Breathless, he recounted the bizarre series of events, but the officers dismissed him as just another paranoid college kid, attributing it all to a bad prank. Defeated, Alex returned home, but the memory of the doll haunted him. Days passed, each one filled with an oppressive sense of dread. He avoided the dark corners of his apartment, and every creak of the building set his nerves on edge. Then came the message from Shade. "You thought you could escape? It's coming for you." That night, as he lay in bed, he heard a soft knock at his door. The sound sent chills racing down his spine. He knew what it was. The last connection he made with the dark web had come back to claim him. Panic surged through him and he jumped out of bed, heart racing. The knocking persisted, more insistent now. Gathering every ounce of courage, he crept toward the door, gripping the handle tightly. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice barely a whisper. There was silence, and then a low, familiar voice came from the other side. "Let me in, Alex. I'm lonely." His breath caught in his throat. The doll's voice. How was this even possible? He stumbled back, his mind racing. In a moment of sheer terror, he reached for his phone and dialed 911, but before he could hit call, the lights flickered again, plunging him into darkness. The knocking turned into banging, shaking the door as if something monstrous was trying to break through. His heart raced as he felt the walls close in. He knew he had to escape. In a blind panic, he turned and fled through the window he had broken just days before. The cool night air hit him as he landed hard on the grass below. He didn't stop to assess the pain. He sprinted down the street, away from the horrors he could no longer face. As he ran, he could feel it, a presence trailing him, an echo of that sinister laughter. The doll was relentless, feeding on his fear and drawing closer with every step. Eventually, he found himself in a park, the moonlight casting eerie shadows. He collapsed on a bench, gasping for breath. In the distance, he saw a figure moving toward him, its shape indistinct in the gloom. "Why do you run, Alex?" the voice echoed, sending chills through him. "I just want to play." Summoning every ounce of strength, he stood and faced the figure, ready to confront whatever nightmare had emerged from the depths of the dark web. "I'm not afraid of you," he shouted, his voice shaking but defiant. The figure stopped, the laughter fading into an unsettling silence. "You should be." With that, the darkness surged forward, enveloping him. As the shadows consumed him, he realized there was no escaping the horror he had awakened. The last connection to the dark web had pulled him into a realm he could never leave, where fear reigned and nightmares became reality. And as the moon hung high in the night sky, all that remained was the laughter of the doll echoing through the stillness, waiting for its next victim.